All right, welcome everyone to Prolific Writers Life, meeting today with StoryOrigin. We are excited to have you here, and you are all going to have a chance to have some questions, and also give a shout out for one of your books at the end of the session. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. I would love to, let's meet Evan really quick here. So Evan, thank you for being here today. And a quick question for you is, you are an expert in helping authors expand and grow their email list, right?
Yeah.
So we have a question for everybody who's out there. Put in the chat, how many people do you have on your current email list? So you can just put a number out there, roughly, just kind of fun to share. And we'll get started.
0, awesome. 1,400, awesome. 10, awesome. 275, awesome. 300, sweet. We've got people from all different sizes. I love seeing people join that have 0 people on their mailing list, because that's the right time to this is the right time for that kind of conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's always the right time to start to grow your email list, right? Doesn't matter what your number is. The important thing is that you get a new member, get a new subscriber, and a new subscriber, and a new subscriber. So Evan, can you tell us, I'm just really curious, you certainly have a passion for this. I know you are pretty much dedicating your life to helping authors grow their email list. That's really a huge substance of your business. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a big part of what StoryOrigin does. That's what a lot of authors start out with on StoryOrigin. When they hear about it, they hear, oh, StoryOrigin, that can help you build your mailing list. I'll go check it out. And then from there, they will usually expand from just growing their mailing list with StoryOrigin to using it for managing their review teams, or managing feedback from beta readers, or building their website, or tracking their daily word count, or distributing audiobook promo codes. StoryOrigin does a whole bunch of things, but usually when authors first hear about StoryOrigin, it is in relation to building a mailing list.
And I just want to let everybody know, I'm Lorraine Hadia, the founder of Prolific Writers Life. We're a writing community where writers get together to support each other. And we have all kinds of different sessions, including today's, to help writers work together. And Evan, I would say one of the foundations of your business as well that we share in common is that the key thing is that if writers work together in teams with other fellow writers and support each other, we're all stronger. If you try to do this on your own, and you guys are all here, so you already understand the power of teamwork. But yeah, the best thing you can do when you're feeling down or feeling writing block or whatever is to get around fellow writers, because they're going to lift you up. And so that's what we're here to do today, is lift each other up and grow our email lists. Okay, Rod.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, Rod is one of our experts at Prolific Writers Life. So Rod, why did you join Prolific Writers Life, and what does it do for you in really quick?
Yeah, I've written, probably at the time I started, probably over 10 mystery novels, and just wanted to, it's always a constant need or a struggle, even after you've written several books, to stay focused, stay organized, to stay sharp, and then also to give back. You learn a lot by giving back to other writers. So Lorraine approached me earlier this year about joining, and it's been really great. I've increased my productivity and kind of gotten back into things outside of just fiction writing. So it's almost like putting a plant in a very fertile environment and watching it grow and expand. So that's what it's been like for me.
Thank you. And Rod is one of our book coaches and also offers words count writing sessions here at Prolific Writers Life. And we absolutely love him as a coach, and our members really get a lot out of it. It's so inspirational. So we absolutely.
And you can go to Shop by Experts
Okay.
and choose broad store and see all of the things he has to offer.
All right. So, Evan, we are going to jump over to tip number 1 on. I'm going to share screen so you can all see. Let's see. This article. So Evan wrote this article called 5 Proven Strategies to Supercharge Your Email List. And we're going to start with the first one. So Evan, tip number 1, offer an interesting reader magnet. Now, most of you probably know what a magnet is, and this could be a lead magnet, but maybe some of you aren't really quite familiar, or maybe you think that lead magnets are just for fiction writers. I'm sorry, nonfiction writers, but easily you can create these kind of lead magnets for fiction writers as well. So I'm going to put this in the chat. So if you want to follow along, if you want to click on that web page, you can see the article we're looking at. But Evan, what does that mean? What's an interesting lead magnet?
Yeah, exactly. So a reader magnet, for those who are unfamiliar with the term reader magnet, it usually refers to something that you give to someone for free when they sign up to your mailing list. So when you're starting to, I mean, the first question most authors have when they're thinking about starting a mailing list is like, why would anyone want to be on my mailing list, right? So that's sort of the first thing you have to answer is, why would someone want to be on your mailing list? And so the best thing to do is create something that you can give to them when they sign up that provides them a reason for signing up to your mailing list. And so when we're talking about authors, we call those reader magnets because they attract a reader like a magnet, right? And so for fiction authors, I usually recommend writing a prequel short story to your book or your series as your reader magnet. It doesn't have to be a prequel short story. That's my very specific recommendation, but it does not have to be that. So it might be a backstory about one of your other characters. It might be a side story to one of your books. It might be an extended epilogue for the first book in your series. Or it could be an anthology of short stories that you've written. There's no real bounds on what you use as a reader magnet. It's essentially any kind of story that you think that you might attract readers to join your mailing list by giving that story to them for free. And so when you've got a reader magnet, you still want to make sure it's really well polished. So you want to have a nice book cover for it. Have an image for that story. It's not just a Word doc that you're sending out to people. You still would want to turn it into like an EPUB file, which is an ebook, so that readers can get it on whatever their preferred reading device is, all that stuff. And you'd still want to, have it edited, make sure that's really well written, because for a lot of readers, this might be the first story of yours that they ever read. And it's kind of like getting a free sample at the food court. I know like malls are dead now, but back when malls were thriving, and I would go to the food court as a teenager, you go to the food court and they have all those free. I guess now it'd be like going to Costco is the example I should use, right? Probably more relatable nowadays. But yeah, it's that free sample. And so you want to make sure that your sample is really good, because if you taste something and you don't like it, then you're not going to buy the follow-up, right? So you want that reader magnet, that story that you give away for free when people join your mailing list. A lot of people will come and read that to check you out as an author. And if it's got tons of typos, there's plot holes in it, they can't understand the story or something along those lines, they're not going to want to buy, whatever other books that you put out as well. So even though it's something that you give away for free, that doesn't mean that you should not invest in it, right? So that's very important still. And so going back to why I recommend a prequel short story to your book or your series, a prequel is really good at hooking people into reading the follow-up book. So some of you, you've already built your mailing list. And so some of you probably already have a reader magnet. It might not be a prequel short story to your book or your series, but one of the reasons I recommend a prequel is that hooks people into reading that follow-up book. And what I recommend at the end of your reader magnet, regardless of whether you've got a prequel or you've got a side story or you've got an anthology or short stories that you're using as a reader magnet, in all of these cases, I still recommend take the first 3 chapters out of your paid book, out of book 1 of whatever series you've got, and put that at the end of that reader magnet. So they read that anthology of short stories and then they start reading into chapter 1 of your paid book, and they get to chapter 3 and they say, oh, I really want to continue this story, and then have a link for them for where they can go to buy the full book, right? And so prequels just naturally lend themselves to doing that tactic, but does not need to be a prequel. Other reasons that you would want to do a prequel short story, and when I say short story, I mean something that's like 10 to 20,000 words. It's usually fairly cheap to edit and fast to write when it's only 10 to 20,000 words, right? You could obviously go shorter, but once you start, you can get into a certain range where, let's say you've only written 1,000-word short story. If a reader signs up to your mailing list to get that short story and it's only 1,000 words, if it's like a single page, they're gonna feel like they were shortchanged, right? They were thinking they were gonna get something with more meat on it, and they just got essentially a paragraph, which is not really a full story. And so you want to make sure that it's decently long. And so that's why I recommend that 10 to 20,000 word range. But the longer you get, the more expensive it's going to be to edit, the longer it's going to take you to edit, all of that stuff. So, you don't want to go too far necessarily either. And so that 10 to 20,000 word range is kind of the sweet spot. Again, like I mentioned, still want to get a book cover produced for it. And so you don't have to use a prequel short story. And I want to just mention this like as a preface to everything that we talk about today. My recommendations are not meant to be roadblocks, right? They are things that I think usually tend to be the most effective method, but that does not make it the only method that is sufficient, right? If you don't have a prequel short story written, and it's going to take you 3 months to write one, and then another 3 months to edit it, and you're not going to start building your mailing list or using that as a reader magnet for another 6 months, then don't use that as a reader magnet. If you've got some short stories lying around that are totally unrelated to your world and your characters of your paid books or series, that's okay. Use those short stories, compile those into an ebook, and put those all together in a single document and use that as your reader magnet. Or if you don't have some short stories laying around, but you've already published book 1 or 2 or 3 of your series, take the first 3 chapters out of book 1 and just make that just by itself your reader magnet. So you sign up to my mailing list, you can read the first 3 chapters of book 1 for free. The recommendation is get started building your mailing list as soon as possible. And then prequel short story usually tends to be one of the more effective ways, but you are not limited in terms of what you use as a reader magnet. And you can have multiple reader magnets. So you don't need to have just a prequel short story. You can have a prequel short story. You can have an anthology of you can use an anthology of short stories. You can use a side story. You have 4 or 5 different reader magnets, because you never know exactly what exactly is going to entice a reader into signing up to your mailing list. So it might be one of those things just really interests a reader and they want that one particular thing, and it's not the prequel, it's something completely else. And so just having more options for readers to get them into your mailing list is great. So you can start with what you have today and then add more as time goes on.
Yeah, and it's interesting, Evan. I like how you literally call this reader magnet, where you're actually giving people something to read, and there's that instant gratification that they sign up for your email list and instantly they're directed to a page or someplace where they can download and start reading. Because sometimes we'll jump on from here, but I really like that you're emphasizing give them something to read, because you want readers, you want people who are readers to buy your books and so forth. But and this also becomes very evergreen. So once you put this out there, it can withstand a lot of time. And certainly if you keep coming out with new books, you can switch it out or whatever. But the other thing too is this gives a gift to everybody, because if you're doing something, a reader magnet that's like, oh, get a t-shirt with one of my characters, one person is going to win a t-shirt with one of my characters. It's like, that's maybe less motivational because it's like a contest, and then you've got fulfillment to do and you got to get their address, and it kind of complicates things. But what you're saying is set this up in a simple way where everybody wins. They get a taste of what you're writing. They get a gift immediately. And now let's go into step 2, because I think this leads really well into, okay, now we have a reader magnet. We decide we're going to give them some content. And by the way, this can work for nonfiction as well. So you can give them a list of tips, your top tips. Anything that's in writing becomes a document that's downloadable. And another point that I think you made, Evan, that's super important is being really professional about it. So take the time to get a really good design on the cover. Make sure it's it's edited so we don't have misspellings, grammar mistakes, things like that. Because this is a taste of our brand. And so we want to make sure that it looks professional, and we're only setting this up once. It can last for many months, possibly even a year. So it's worth the time to invest in an evergreen piece that's going to bring people to read your books. So here we are on step number 2, Evan, and not every author is very technical, nor do they know how to run their website. So all of a sudden we're like, oh no, optimize your website. That sounds really technical and difficult. So how can we make this simpler for authors?
Yeah, it does not need to be complicated. Optimizing your website for your reader magnet just means make sure that it's prominently displayed, right? You just want to make sure that people see the offer for that free short story or prequel or whatever you have there, so that when readers come to your website, whether that's from social media or from a link at the back of your book or from an ad that you're running, when they go and check out your website, they can see that offer and say, oh, this looks really interesting. I want to get this book. Oh, I can get it for free. Oh, I just put in my name and my email address, and then it'll, send me a link, right? So it does not need to be super complicated. For some authors, that might sound super complicated because certain website design systems make updating websites incredibly difficult or finicky, and so that can be a challenge if you've got a platform that is quite finicky in that way. This is where I'll mention StoryOrigin also has a website builder feature. So if you use StoryOrigin's website builder feature, you don't have to mess around with HTML or CSS or the layout of the website or anything like that. You can essentially just click which book you want to show displayed at the top of your web page, and StoryOrigin will make that the header of the website, and everything is essentially auto laid out. You just say what books in what order, and StoryOrigin auto lays out everything on that website that you build with StoryOrigin. So it does not need to be complex though. So if you're using Squarespace or Wix or WordPress or something along those lines, you just want to make sure that that segment at the top of your homepage makes that offer clear to readers when they come to your website. that, hey, they can get a free book or series or free book or story when they sign up to your mailing list. And again, as you mentioned, Lorraine, it does, I was talking mostly about, stories, but this definitely also applies to nonfiction authors. So as you mentioned, it might be your top tips, or like, let's say you're a weight loss or health expert, or you talk a lot about exercise. It might be something like a meal plan or an exercise regimen or something along those lines. Or maybe it's worksheets about, a particular topic that someone is working on, and they go through the worksheets to help them do stuff like progress toward their goals, etc. So the concept of a reader magnet does not only apply to fiction authors. This is something that nonfiction authors can do as well.
Yeah, and I think this is where writers have an edge when it comes to marketing. A lot of things are kind of challenging about marketing, but writers are very creative people, especially if you put a bunch of writers together and then they start brainstorming and designing. But I've even seen people offer a reader magnet, like a little bit of history of the book, or that time frame of when they did it, or there's all kinds of information that readers are interested. A lot of people like to read, to learn history, to learn how to improve their lives. So be creative, have fun with this, right? Like, this can feel hard, but it really should feel fun and exciting. And I think the other really important question here, Evan, that we didn't quite address yet, obviously everybody in the room here probably understands that an email list is important, but why is an email list so important for authors, Evan?
Yeah. When you look at if you look at like sort of the marketing landscape for authors, you can look at social media. Social media can be great, but social media can be quite challenging as well. A lot of times when you post to social media, it used to be, timelines were all just chronological. If you just posted when people were online, then they would see your post. Now everything's algorithmically driven. So, there's an algorithm behind the scenes that's determining whether or not your posts get shown to the people who are ostensibly following you to see your content. And only a small percentage of them are going to actually see it. So you might only see that your posts are seen between 1% to 3% of the number of subscribers that you have, to any given platform like Facebook or Twitter, etc. That has become more pay to play, where now if you actually want to get more people to see your posts, a lot of times you're going to have to pay extra to get your posts boosted to people's timelines. And then the other thing is advertising platforms. So advertising platforms like Facebook and Amazon, etc., those are usually based on bidding for impressions. And so over time, as more authors and more advertisers enter those platforms, the cost to advertise on those platforms becomes more expensive, because there are more marketing dollars chasing the same number of eyeballs, right? And so just over time, those bidding systems tend to result in higher prices as more people get on the platform. So it becomes challenging, especially for authors that might only have a single book out, to do advertising on those platforms when they are competing against authors that might have, a 10-book series, and they're willing to lose, $2 or $3 on acquiring a reader, someone who buys their first book, because they know that X percentage of people that read their first book are going to go on to buy book 2, book 3, book 4, book 5, book 6, etc. in their series. And so the value of a reader to them might be $60, $70, $80 for that series. And so they're willing to bid, $2, $3, $4, $5, $10 to get a single reader to buy that first book. And so having a mailing list allows you a way to start to grow an audience that when you go and you release book 2 or book 3 in your series, you're not having to go and pay all these advertising platforms and put money into those things, because you have an audience that you can just say, hey, I just released book 2 in the series, like, you can go buy it now here, here, and here. That being said, advertising platforms are great, but they're just one avenue, and having that mailing list gives you that direct point of contact with a reader where you can send them follow-ups about new releases and everything else that you can't really do with a traditional advertising platform. And the other thing is, with a mailing list, now that you're building a direct relationship with your readers, you can find those people who are also going to be your champions. So people that might become beta readers for you, or might want to join your review team, or might want to join your street team, where they are going to publish, they might post about when you have a new release, all that stuff. And so when I'm talking about different advertising and marketing channels for authors, mailing lists are really the only way to have that direct point of contact with your readers, where you can really use them to do so many more things than simply say, hey, come buy my book. Because having a review team is quite important, and it's hard to do any other way. And a review team, for those of you who haven't started one yet, I highly recommend it. Those are usually people that you'll give a copy of your book several weeks ahead of you publishing it. And you'll say, hey, if you'd like my book for free, you can get it for free. I just ask that after you read it, you write a review of it. And so StoryOrigin has a review copies feature where people can request a review copy from you, and they'd say the platforms on where they plan to leave a review, so like Amazon or Goodreads, BookBub, etc. And then if they say they're going to leave a review on one of those platforms like Amazon or Goodreads, etc., they would also leave the link to their reviewer profile on that platform. So you can see, okay, this person says they're going to leave a review on Amazon, and it looks like they've reviewed other books in my genre before, so I can be relatively confident that they'll actually read and review my book as well. And so doing that sort of thing, where you're asking people, hey, who wants to get my next book for free, come request it from me over here, that is so much easier with a mailing list. Yeah, you can't really find there's not really another good way to do that. You can do that kind of thing on social media, but the way the algorithm works, those kinds of posts usually will not get displayed to your audience. They don't really, if it drives engagement outside of their platform, then they're not going to really show it to your audience. And so email is one of those things where no one controls email, right? It is a decentralized system between a bunch of different parties, and so there's no one in charge of an algorithm. And so when you send an email to someone, there's a as long as you're not hitting the spam filters, then your emails almost will be much more likely to be seen in someone's inbox than a Facebook post.
Yeah, and this is a really good segue over to social media. So I think, this point number 2 about optimize your website for email signups is, like you said, there's so many things we can do when we have these one-on-one connections, and even when we give away our books for free, the reviewer copies and all, those people that know us and like us are going to be our best advertisers for word of mouth, to tell other people, hey, I just read this book, you got to check it out, I think you'll love it. So, sometimes it might feel like, oh, we're giving this away for free, but giving it away to free to your best advertiser who's a friend, or a family member even. So email signups. And now the next point, I'm just going to jump back over here real quick so everybody can just get a glimpse of it. Now, we already talked about some of the downsides to social media, but the next one is leverage social media to grow your author email list. I will say we have personally experienced here as well at Prolific Writers Life, Evan. We did a test, and for 90 days straight, we published to all of our channels, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, you name it, whatever. For 90 days, we published 3 posts a day just to see what would happen. And it still wasn't as much as blogging. Our blogging, the SEO on our blog articles was driving more, continues to drive more traffic, even when we push the gas pedal on our social media. So I think you're absolutely right that, you know, everybody says social media, you got to be on Facebook, you got to be on this, you got to do that. But really we should be saying, what are you doing to grow your email list, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, that's why, you know, the tip is leverage social media to grow your mailing list, because try and get those people onto a platform that you control, right? When someone joins your mailing list, you know, if you're building a presence on Facebook or other, you know, social media platforms, Twitter, TikTok, LinkedIn, whatever else, those are places that you don't really have direct control over. And so if tomorrow, you know, that platform decides to ban you or limit your posting ability for some reason, which is, you know, seems like it's happening more and more every day, then you lose that ability to connect with your audience. And so if you are active on social media, then make sure at the same time you're driving those people over to sign up to your mailing list as well, because, you know, regardless of which email service provider you sign up to, let's say, you know, so a part of this, you know, email newsletters 101 here, when you're sending out a newsletter, you need to sign up to an email service provider like MailerLite or MailChimp or ActiveCampaign or ConvertKit. Those are the services where you would actually design your newsletters. You know, that's where you would write your email, and then that's where you keep your list of people who are signed up to your mailing list. And so you would use that service to send that email to all of those people. Because, you know, you can't just send an email out to 1,000 people from a Gmail or Yahoo account, whatever, right? Those you're limited on how many emails you can actually send in a single day. But with an email service provider, there's no real limit. So, let's say that for whatever reason tomorrow MailChimp goes out of business. Well, you can always just download the CSV of the emails that you have on your mailing list and move over to MailerLite and upload your mailing list to MailerLite, and you can keep in contact with your audience. There's no, you know, it's you have control over that connection with your audience by just having that list of email addresses. Or, you know, so if MailChimp closes your account for whatever reason, you still control that list of emails.
Do you, you've worked with a lot of these different email type systems for sending out newsletters, Evan. Do you have some that you think are a little bit easier to work with for authors?
Yeah, I generally recommend MailerLite is a good starting place for most authors. Most authors tend to find it fairly intuitive, and they have a fairly generous free tier. I think the free tier is currently, you can have up to 1,000 people on your email list for free, and be sending emails out to them. And you can set up automated welcome sequence emails for free on the free tier as well. And I think a lot of other email service providers don't allow you to set up automated welcome sequences for your mailing list unless you're on the paid tier. So that's another nice thing about MailerLite.
Okay, and so our point number 3 here too is leverage social media to grow your author email list. So what kind of posts, what do you actually put out there to attract people? Because what you're saying is use social media to get people to sign up for your list. Don't necessarily use social media to say, go straight to Amazon, right?
Right.
So what do you actually say in this sort of post?
Well, I wouldn't say that there's a specific thing that you ought to be posting about or way of posting on social media. Everyone has their own voice. Everyone has their own, what is sort of authentic to them. In my newsletters and stuff like that, I'm usually sharing like pictures of me, baking, or pictures of me, doing stuff with my family, like building forts with my son or whatever, right? So, what people post on social media, that's all going to be, that has to all just be personal to you. I would not recommend trying to be super formulaic about it necessarily, because it's just going to come off as inauthentic and probably not going to really result in any engagement or growth. So I would say, it's essentially, be yourself, post whatever you like. You don't have to use social media if you don't want to. But if you use social media and that is something that you enjoy doing, then just also make sure that there are links on your profiles, so that when people say, "Oh, I really like this person," make sure that you have a pinned post or something on your profile or in your bio that says, "Hey, if you want to get a free story from me as well, come sign up to my mailing list here at this link." And so it's less about what you post day to day and more about making your profile and all that stuff for those who do come visit it and want to learn more about you, to make that offer available to them as well.
You just made a really good point there, Evan. Using that pinning feature that you can use on a lot of different social media platforms, right, is pin your most important one at the top and keep it updated, right? You don't want to have an outdated event pinned, because as soon as if somebody does visit your page, and if it's something that's really old, but yeah, have an evergreen post, sign up for my newsletter, really professional, pin to the top of your social media. Even if you don't have anything else there, if they happen to find your website, or if they happen to see your book, or somebody happens to tell them about your website, whatever, they go there and they click on any of your social media, then they're still directed back to, it's like kind of a circular thing to keep
Yep.
coming back to sign up for my newsletter, right?
Yep.
That's a really good tip. All right. So social media, yeah, I think many authors have a love-hate relationship with social media, but it's there and we have to make a decision about it, right? Even if the decision is to ignore it, but
And that's totally fine too. I generally recommend to authors, do not try to post to 20 different platforms every single day. Unless that's like something you really enjoy doing and you love engaging on all those different platforms. Pick whatever you like the most. You like Facebook the most? Great. Like, just post on Facebook. You like Twitter or Threads or Instagram or TikTok? You like one of those better? Just do that. You don't need to be on 10 different platforms and trying to grow everything all at the same time, because that can be incredibly time consuming. And I wouldn't really recommend to people to go out of their way to post on social media unless it's something that they enjoy doing, because for the most part, as you were mentioning, like, the juice is not usually worth the squeeze. You can spend a lot of time on social media and not see it move the needle. So unless it's something that you enjoy, I would not say that is like the most effective method for, growing your audience. But again, it's gonna kind of depend on like your genre and your interests and all that stuff too.
yeah. Another thing you said, Evan, I just wanted to highlight to everybody, which you do, I'm on your email list. And one of the things I really like is that you do post those personal things more on your email list, with your son and whatnot. And like Rod right now, I believe he's calling in from Japan. I'm not sure what time it is in Japan right now, but he could post something in a newsletter talking about his trip to Japan, and as an author, he's journaling or whatever it is he's doing over there. So But
Yeah.
if we give that more personal stuff to the people who are subscribed to our email, we almost teach them to go to our emails to get the juicier stuff than go out to social media where they get lost and end up buying cat food, you know?
Well, and I mean, again, it's different for everyone. Me personally, I also feel weird about like posting some of the stuff that I put in my newsletters. Like, like I'll put in my newsletters just like little vignettes from my life that are not necessarily particularly interesting or noteworthy. Like, it's not really something that's made for social media, but it's the kind of thing that you might just talk about in a casual conversation with a friend, right? Like, we went to 2 birthday parties this past weekend. So we went to one was at Chuck E. Cheese, and one was at the Little Gym. Both parties were for 4-year-olds, um, and a couple kids of our couple of our friends, and so like, that's what I talked about in my newsletter, and I put a little picture there of Henry playing on like a couple of the bars. Henry is my son, who's 4, playing on the bars at the Little Gym. And yeah, it's not like something that's particularly exciting or interesting or funny, but it's just a little bit of like my life. And that is something that I have fun doing, sharing those things. And it is also a good way to build rapport with your audience, because they see that you're a real human and that you're not just like some robot or someone who's just on the internet 100% of the time. And so yeah, it's a very good way to just connect with people, because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. You're trying to build relationships with your audience. And when you build rapport with your audience, they'll be more likely as well to potentially become beta readers for you, or, join your review team, or post about when you have a new release.
This whole thing about, community and seeing other authors, fellow authors are not our competition. They are our best friends, because I think most readers understand this. If somebody likes reading mystery novels, they're going to like reading somebody else's mystery novel. They don't want one. They want more. So what does this mean, cross-promote with other authors, Evan?
Yeah, so there are 2 real key aspects to sending a newsletter out. One is building rapport with your audience, which is the thing I was just talking about. Sharing little stories or vignettes from your life, pictures, things you're doing. Again, can be simple stuff like walking your dog or going to the park or anything like that. Does not need to be anything particularly special. But the other part of your newsletter also is providing value to the people who are opening your emails, right? So if all I ever sent out was a picture of my dog, and I sent that newsletter out every month for a year, eventually I would have no subscribers at the end of the year, except for people who really love pictures of my dog. And so, because you want to be providing value to your audience. And so for, people who are subscribed to StoryOrigin, like, and they're on StoryOrigin, usually my newsletter will be like features I'm working on, or updates I've made to the existing features, or it might be resources or Q&As like this one, where I'm, sharing helpful information with authors, etc. So the main goal of that second aspect of your newsletter is provide value to readers in some way. And so for a lot of authors, the best way to provide value to a reader is to give them interesting other books to check out that they might like. Because if you only ever send out a newsletter whenever you have a new release, usually that's going to be months between your newsletters if you're only sending out a newsletter with every release, unless you can write extremely fast and you're one of those authors that can put out a book a month. But that is very uncommon. you'll probably be you'll probably have a new release maybe once a year. And if you're only sending a newsletter out once a year, you are going to have incredibly high unsubscribe rates and incredibly low open rates, because people are just not used to seeing your name in their inbox, and they might have forgotten why they signed up to your mailing list, why they're on your mailing list in the first place. And so sending out regular emails is quite vital to making sure that people are actually opening and clicking on your emails. So if you don't have a new release to share every single month, but you need to be sending that frequently, and you can't just send pictures of your dog every month, then what are you sending? Send recommendations or send other books for them to check out that they might be interested in. And so, one part of your newsletter is like, here's this story from my life. Here's, what I was up to this week, or here's what I'm working on right now. And then the other part of that newsletter is, here's other books that you might be interested in. And a great way to do that section is to arrange cross promotions with other authors, where they will mention their book, they'll mention your book in their newsletter, and you'll mention your book in your newsletter. So this is called a newsletter swap, where I'll say, Lorraine, yeah, I'll mention your book in my next upcoming newsletter if you mention my book in your next upcoming newsletter. That's called a newsletter swap. And it provides value to everyone. I'll send some traffic to Lorraine's book. Lorraine will send some traffic to my book, and readers will get the opportunity to see something that they might think is interesting as well. And so it's really works out for everybody. And those are things that you can do every single newsletter. So you can always have new books for your readers to check out. Now, these don't need to be books that you have personally read and that you recommend. I think of it more like the also bought section on Amazon. So when you go to a product page on Amazon, you might see, oh, readers that bought this also bought these other books, right? Think about it more like that. So that's not Jeff Bezos saying, yeah, I personally recommend these books. That is just the system saying, hey, here are some other interesting things for you to check out that you might like. Amazon hasn't, Jeff Bezos is not actually personally read and recommending those books, right? And so you can think of that section of your newsletter the same way, as just like, here's some other things that might interest you. And so it's not stuff that you're saying that you vouch for necessarily or something like that. Though it's always a good idea when you're arranging a newsletter swap with another author to at least read the book description, check out the reviews on it, maybe read the first page and just say, okay, are there tons of, typos or anything like that in the book description or anything? And so before you agree to a newsletter swap with another author. But yeah, that is one type of newsletter swap where it's, one type of cross promotion where it's simply one other author. You're just saying, yeah, let's agree to recommend, mention our books in each other's newsletters. And the other type of cross promotion that you can do is called a group promo. That's where you, me, and let's say 20 other authors, we all put our books on a single landing page, and then we all drive traffic to that landing page. And so, let's say you, me, and 20 other fantasy authors, we're all going to list our reader magnets on a landing page. And then in each of our newsletters, we all say, hey, I've got a group promotion going on. You can go check out these free books from these 20 other fantasy authors. They're all free. Lots of great stuff there. And then that is a huge value to your readers. And they'll see those reader magnets and say, oh, I want to get that one. And they'll sign up for that other author's mailing list to get their free story. And then the same thing will happen with your book, right? Where other readers from other authors' newsletters will see your reader magnet on that landing page and sign up to your mailing list to get your free story. And so that is another great way to build your mailing list. And you can arrange newsletter swaps. When you're doing newsletter swaps, you can arrange those to promote your reader magnets as well. So you'd say, hey, could you promote my free story that I have up on StoryOrigin at this landing page here? And that's where I'm, delivering the free story and collecting signups to my mailing list.
Fantastic. And I think we'll just share the last one here real quick. I think we have covered this point. You've spoken to this a couple times, but the final one is provide consistent value. So consistent value is in give people a reason to open your newsletter, right? Make sure they have a reason, and keep it interesting and keep it somewhat frequent. You've mentioned kind of monthly, Evan. I mean, if we go less than a month is probably a minimal amount of time to send an email.
Yeah, I would recommend sending a newsletter at least once a month. Yeah, if you go 2 or 3 months in between, that's when you start to run into those issues where, people forget why they're on your mailing list. And so you're getting higher unsubscribe rates and lower open rates, all that stuff. And from the number of authors I've talked to, most authors actually find when they send a newsletter twice a month, they actually have higher open rates, lower unsubscribe rates, higher click rates. And so sending a newsletter twice a month might be even better. But for those authors who are just getting started with building a mailing list and they're not exactly sure how much time it's going to take them, and they don't want to, set aside that amount of time every 2 weeks to do something like that, start out once a month. And then, once you get comfortable with it after, 3 or 4 months or something like that, then maybe consider, okay, maybe I'll bump it up to twice a month because it only takes me an hour to put my newsletter together, and I'm getting huge value from it by arranging all these cross promotions with other authors. And if I'm sending twice a month, then I can do that many more cross promotions. And so I can drive, double the amount of traffic to my reader magnet, or double the amount of traffic to my sales page on Amazon, or double the amount of traffic to my review copies where I'm building a review team, etc. So, yeah, start out at once a month, and then you can test out sending more frequently down the line.
And Evan, I think I mentioned this to you before. At Prolific Writers Life, we would love to have an expert here at Prolific Writers Life who can kind of, share how to grow your email list. I know that you are very busy. You are managing your business. We are looking for an ambassador. I just put the link in the chat from StoryOrigin to come over and help our members here at Prolific Writers Life. Or if there's somebody here in the house today, or if you are watching this YouTube later and you know somebody who knows how to help grow email lists or is has great experience with StoryOrigin, we would love to have an expert here in our community so that we have this regularly circling around in our daily conversation and how to grow our email list. We have about 2 minutes left. And so what I want to do is we do have one question in the chat. We're going to take a couple questions. Evan, do you still have another 10 minutes for some questions, Q&A?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So I think we had one question that got dropped a little bit earlier. Is it good to have it right below? And by the way, in about 10 minutes, we will let you all share your books as well. Is it good to have it, and I think they're talking about the reader magnet, below the image and at least once more toward the bottom of the homepage? Where to put CTAs? Okay, any advice on the location on your website?
Yeah. I mean, for your reader magnet, putting it below the hero image is a great idea. A lot of times I'll just, with StoryOrigin's website builder, essentially the hero image is the book cover for your reader magnet, and then just blurred out to create a more sort of artistic feel, and then has that book cover there and has that sign up to get it free button right there. So that hero section, that very top section on your website, being your reader magnet is a great idea. Or having it just below, maybe if you've got a big hero image and it just says something like "Welcome to my website" or whatever you have there, or I love to write fantasy worlds, and then below that you've got another segment there. Yeah, just have it at the top, and then have that call to action elsewhere on your website as well to get people to see that offer of the free story when they sign up to your mailing list.
So we're saying this goes on the home page. This is not buried somewhere on another side page or whatever, right? This is on the home page.
Yep. Yeah.
That's how important it is.
Yeah, for sure.
So what do you think about pop-ups?
I am not opposed to pop-ups. I don't do them. But it's, it can be valuable as well. It is also just one of those other things where it can be technically challenging to set those up in a way that is not super annoying to readers too. And you don't want to turn off your audience when they're, on your website browsing your series and looking for their next book to buy. You don't necessarily want to interrupt that experience, but everyone has their own sort of opinions on that, and I don't have a strong opinion about one way or another.
Gotcha. Let's see. So next question is, what is your suggestion for when an author does drop off the face of the earth? How can we introduce ourselves? Great question.
I honestly, I would just go on pretending like nothing happened. I just start sending your newsletter again regularly, and people that unsubscribe, and people that remember you and want to stick on your mailing list will. I would not do a big like, hey, I'm back, folks. Like, it's been 2 years since I've sent you since I've sent you an email, sort of a deal. I would just start sending your newsletter like you used to do it, and just sort of go on like there was an intervening period where you weren't sending your newsletter. Because yeah, I think, so while sending a newsletter has much higher rates that will be seen than with social media. Like, let's say you dropped off the let's say you stopped posting to Facebook for 2 or 3 years or something like that. If you made a post, if you start posting again, like, you don't necessarily talk about how you're back on Facebook. It's just like, here's this funny thing, now I'm posting it again. So I would sort of treat the newsletter that same way, and not make a big deal out of it necessarily. And, open rates on newsletters tend to be around like 30 or 40% is what you should try to hit for your open rate on your mailing list. And so even if you haven't been around for a while or haven't sent your newsletter for a while, if you send an email that's like, hey, I'm back, folks, only 30 to 40% of your subscribers are going to necessarily see that. And so that is not really, just sending a single email would not be a great way to necessarily reintroduce yourself, because not everyone's going to see it. And then the other thing is, going back to, your newsletter is there to provide value to the readers and to build a relationship with them. Now, if you dropped off the face of the if you dropped off the face of the earth, and you stopped sending a newsletter for 2 years, and you're an epic fantasy author, you might throw a single line in there that's like, oh, sorry, I was off fighting dragons for the past 2 years. I didn't have time to send this newsletter, but now that I've, beheaded the dragon and saved the princess, I was walking my dog today, and just do that transition straight from like the fantastical to the very mundane would be great. But yeah, I would probably maybe just do something very simple like that, because at the end of the day, it's all about building rapport, and and delivering value by sharing, suggestions for what other, what other books readers might like to check out. And so if you go into a very detailed story of, here's what I've been doing for the past 2 years, like, oh, I had a lot of, I was really busy doing all this other stuff, and like sending an email full of excuses for why you didn't send out a newsletter for the past 2 years is not providing value to your readers. and it's also not really building rapport with them either. So it's not doing something like that isn't valuable to either you or your audience.
Yeah, and one thing I would say too, Evan, is, in Prolific Writer's Life, if we have a session every Tuesday called Build Your Author Platform, and we might be talking about, hey, I'm working on this newsletter. This is a great opportunity if you're working in community, whether it's the StoryOrigin community or Prolific Writer's Life community of writers, is you can bounce ideas around other writers, right? And just say, hey, I'm thinking about sending this out. What do you guys think? And they might say just what you said, like, no, don't tell them that. Make it interesting, make it fun, right? So this is the value of working in community versus just, trying to work in a closet. Some writers could be considered introverts, so not all for sure, but it's much better to work in teams and help each other out. We do have a web designer in the house who says, yes, pop-ups do tend to be annoying, so use them sparingly. Absolutely. And we have a comment, love the idea of just kind of coming back and being in a creative way of saying why you were gone. Any other questions that anybody has, drop them in the chat. And Evan, we covered a lot of different things here. I just thank you so much for sharing these 5 tips with everybody. Is there anything that we didn't cover with these 5 big tips for authors who want to grow their email list, keeping in mind that we have people in the house who have a 0 so far? So
yeah, I would just say the one other thing is there's lots of resources. So we talked all about building a mailing list and what goes in a newsletter, how frequently you send, all that stuff. There's resources on StoryOrigin where you can read some in-depth guides that I've written about building mailing lists and all that stuff as well. So check out StoryOriginApp.com. Thank you, Lorraine, for dropping that in the chat. StoryOriginApp.com. If you just hit that tutorials tab in the top nav bar, you'll find from there, you'll find links to in-depth guides I've written, case studies I've done with authors, and links to video tutorials on StoryOrigin as well.
And Evan, I just want to thank you so much for your time today. I know that you are busy being an entrepreneur. And I have one last question for you. Why on earth did you start StoryOrigin?
I used to write short stories back in high school. And then in college, I got interested in tech and entrepreneurship and wanted to combine those interests. So after I left my previous job to build tools for writers and also get back into writing. And I went and I talked to a bunch of authors, and they said, I use this tool for building my mailing list, this tool for finding reviewers, this other service for creating universal book links, some combination of Facebook groups and Google Forms to arrange newsletter swaps with other authors. I have this other service for building my website. I have this spreadsheet for tracking my word count, another spreadsheet for distributing my audiobook promo code. I was like, okay, stop. I get it. You prove your point. You have like a lot of different stuff that you're doing, and this seems like incredibly complex, and you're doing all this context switching while at the same time maintaining this whole world and story that you've written and you're developing. And this seems incredibly challenging. So I'm going to build one tool that does all that business sort of side stuff all in one spot for you so that you can have more time to write and less time managing, okay, which service do I need to log into to do the thing that I was going to do, and what was I doing again? So yeah, that's why I built StoryOrigin. And then it quickly took over 100% of my time, so I did not have the time to get back to the writing the way that I wanted to. But it's fine because I love writing software. So.
Well, thank you, Evan. Any final questions? I don't see any more in the chat, so I think we can call it a wrap. I want to thank everybody for being here today. I don't see any hands raised for anybody wanting to give a shout out for their book. I will give one for mine. This is one I'm working on, and believe me, I feel the challenge, Evan, of trying to manage Prolific Writer's Life and finish your book. This is my upcoming book that I've been working on, and this is plug into the power of a writing community and get it done. And this is the importance of showing examples in our community of people who have been working on books for 5-10 years and just not getting them done, but they come in, become a member, and then they get their books published. So Not that
Awesome.
we're publishers, but it's just the community that provides the support and encouragement.
That is so valuable.
Yeah. Evan, thank you so much for your time today. It's such a pleasure to chat with you again. And
Thanks again for having me.
we'll catch up soon.